Did you like it? So it's been 11 nights playing. Your home has been unexpected. Did you hear what you say?
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay. And remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
We find ourselves once more in the towering stacks of your library.
Yes.
Not so towering to my eyes anymore, because I've recently...
Discovered ladders.
I was going to sound very excited about it. Yes, I've discovered ladders, Kay. I like the ladders that you have in your library because they're not affixed to the bookcases that they help you ascend.
Yes.
So I've been able to create rudimentary bridges across the roofs of several of these cases.
Yes.
And my encounters with bookworms have significantly reduced
yes.
now that I can safely travel along the top of the bookcase.
You're going all Tensei Norgay, trying to climb over the crags of the Kombu Icefall, except in this case it's the...
And then letting Sir
bookshelf.
Edmund Hillary take credit for it. Yeah.
Well, there's that. They
No, he did it too.
I was
Yes,
gonna say,
exactly.
they got there
He was
together.
there too.
I think most of the only pictures up there, up the top, are of Tensei, because Tensei didn't know how to Norgay didn't know how to operate the cameras. Edmund Hillary took
A
all
likely
the photos.
story. Yeah, I mean that's what I would have said too.
Yeah, so I was like,
No, I don't understand how to do this thing.
first one to the
Yeah,
top.
okay,
yeah.
I'll do this one too then, Tenzing. Jesus. Poor Sir Edmund Hillary. He really got robbed of the credit that he so
Oh
rightly
God, yes,
deserved.
no, nobody's ever heard of him. Ever heard of him again?
But maybe I'll venture out a bit more because I've been traveling along the rooftops of the cases, and I haven't been attacked by anything up there. Like, it seems like a fairly safe stratum
Yeah,
of your...
it takes a long time, but because you have to move the ladder across every gap and then climb across to the next one. And if you have to find a particular book that you're after, you have to descend again. So, I mean, I just
I'm getting really good at rappelling.
True.
I found the novelization of Mission Impossible 1 with Tom Cruise.
Oh, lovely.
That's actually what it's called. Mission Impossible 1 with Tom Cruise. You know, the one with Tom Cruise.
I don't remember that book. Oh, well.
That's probably not a reason to worry.
It happens when you put too many books together.
Sounds like one of those things that we really need to talk about. But we're moving on to the subject of a book that we definitely do have in your library.
Yes.
I'm sure that this won't come up in the future. This will be fine. What do we have for our readers at home this week?
We have a book by Richard Peck, Lost in Cyberspace.
I really enjoyed this because this was some of the most grounded fiction that we've read. It was set in something resembling our regular everyday world, if a little bit of a period piece.
Right. Well, I suppose the 80s counts as period piece nowadays.
It definitely does.
It's clearly a book where the concept of cyberspace is slowly starting to filter into the common parlance. It's not just Gibson anymore, who
was the grandfather of cyberpunk.
More or less, yes. Cyberspace was trying to become a thing, and many more authors decide, we can do something with this, and we can make this work.
It sort of feels like it came out at a point where most regular people who didn't quite know what the internet was yet had heard the word cyberspace here and there, so they'd recognized it when they saw it on a cover.
Yeah. Well, the cover kind of reminds me of that War Games vibe. We have a few boys in their school clothes, I dare say, even though
I was confused about what age they're supposed to be.
Well, they're clearly teenagers being played by 20-somethings. I mean, the whole young adult thing back in the 80s did not really involve teenagers yet.
Well, there was weird science. And those boys were 14, 15, maybe they were supposed to be 16.
They had no idea what they were supposed to be doing. I mean,
no, true.
There were all the allegations, but none of the payoff. I've actually seen that movie. I know of it, of course. But
wait, you've never seen it?
I don't think I have. No.
It's John Hughes. It's got music by Oingo Boingo with Danny Elfman.
Let's have a movie review sometime.
Movie review one of these days. Yeah, and we're gonna look at some digital. Well, I was going to say digital tits, haha, that's the funny thing to look at, but that woman's hair is the amazing part of her body. Some digital hair that's all over the place. 1980s Mega-Perm.
Rather unlike the hair of this lady here, who is clearly being transported out of cyberspace.
Yes, God damn it, we're trying something new with the notes. Penny. All right. Instead of a voluptuous computer MILF like the boys in Weird Science, and I apologize for how many times I'm going to reference this movie that you've just confirmed to me you have not seen.
That's fine.
Instead, they get this Hermione Granger-esque. I mean, she's a nerd.
Yes, it's the Amish cyberspace incursion.
The That's right. The Amish... Oh, God, you've got notes. The Amish cyberspace incursion. Yep. You've got notes, and now it's definitely true. The Amish cyberspace incursion, that is in the book that we've both read. This is a great way to keep notes. We're doing so good.
Let's backtrack a little bit and talk about how it got to this point in the book.
How did we get to this point? Yes. Well, I ask myself that often, Kay. By the way, we've completely forgotten about this. For the readers at home, if you look on your podcasting device, you should be seeing the cover of this week's episode, which features a boy in a school uniform without his school blazer at the computer, and a boy in a full school uniform behind him, and between them is Penny Merriweather, the Amish avatar, freshly descended from cyberspace with cybergunk still in her hair.
John comes back from his spring break, I believe it is. One of the things he's brought back is this quilt, which he's gotten from his recently deceased aunt, who's apparently was living in with the Pennsylvania Dutch. So he comes back with this traditional quilt, which he just tosses on his bed at some point, and
yeah, I'm sure he does.
Setting up the camera for his computer. I mean, back in the 80s, having a digital camera was a big thing, you know. It's It's not, and of course, once he points it at his bed for unknown reasons.
Yes, yes.
He notices that the quilt is having really strange effects on the computer.
Yes, although the curious moire patterns happening on the screen.
And I mean, I guess we would call it a QR code these days. So the camera scans in this quilt as it lays on the bed, and of course, at first it doesn't work because he's partially on it himself. But he ends up putting it up on the wall and getting a proper scan of it, and it sends his computer completely haywire.
You calling it QR code makes complete sense. I kind of related it as I was reading it to the old, what was it called? LOL memory. Do you remember from the Apollo days?
Right, yes.
The little old lady, the actual woven read-only memory.
Right, the knotted ferrite core memory.
Exactly.
I mean, we see the same thing in the original Tron, isn't it? Where he has a laser that digitizes.
Yeah, there's a special laser that digitalizes him into cubes.
So computer starts crunching, and he's loath to pull the plug on it, and that's the part where
that glowing cloud of plasma starts to hover in his room that he's not entirely sure what to do of, and then his parents try to come in and clean up. It's like, no, Mom, I'm busy.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing stuff.
You can hear the eye roll from the mother, and it's like, just use a fucking tissue this time.
Yes. We're running out of socks. They are so expensive, and they clog the drains.
So we've now arrived at the front page of the book.
Yes, where he's called his friend Pete to come over and take a look. Pete is, I'm pretty sure, he's the boy standing at the back. He's not described in the book as being as computer savvy. He's
no, he's more the suave, the quick, exactly, the lacrosse player.
And I actually really like that about their friendship, because John Sweeney, he's a fairly archetypal nerd considering what he's into, but he's not given the physical accoutrements of an unfuckable nerd. Like, he doesn't have big glasses, and he doesn't have he's just a regular boy, and so's Pete Mayfair.
Yeah.
And I like that they're friends, despite the fact that they have different worlds. They have some shared interests.
Yeah, well, they go to the same school.
They go to the same school, they watch the same TV shows for a large part, but they find a lot in common.
I guess Pete has a little thing where it's it's only implied in the book, but John is the supplier of the scalaceous material that
he's got the hook
boys are wont to do.
Yeah, there was a really earnest exploration of the quest for identity, given form then through the sudden appearance of Penny Merriweather in the middle of their lives.
Who has absolutely no idea what she's doing here. I mean, she's like a virus coded in by Jacob Amman, the founder of the Amish.
That's right. Is that right?
That is right.
Oh,
it is. That's actually a historical bit of fact that got woven into the book.
That tends to happen a lot in the books we review, doesn't it?
That, isn't it?
I'm not sure whether she's supposed to be really an 18th century girl who finds herself at the end of the 20th century, or is she just an Amish who doesn't acknowledge, the passing of time between the 18th century and the 20th century?
I hadn't considered that. She's clearly a program, quote unquote, which has been run from the original quilt.
The source quilt.
Yeah. And she's, it's cyberspace, so there's the internet is already there. Well, they didn't call it the internet yet at that point.
Well, yes.
It was cyberspace.
And the information, although in their case it's a information two-way buggy path.
Right, yes. Mail letters like sending TCP over carrier pigeon, which is an actual RFC. The latency is terrible, but the throughput is pretty high.
Yes.
And as I say, never underestimate the bandwidth of a UPS truck full of data tapes hurling down the highway.
Is that what they say?
Yes.
As they say, do they say that often?
They do.
They do
They
say
do. Very busy people, them.
But not Pete and John. They are not particularly busy people. And it's one of the first things that Penny chides them on, that they're so...
That they're not applying themselves, that they're like...
layabouts and...
barely doing any schoolwork.
The story takes place in this limbo, those hours between obligations that the teenagers have, where like school just kind of doesn't exist except for recess and breaks between classes, and they
because it's not relevant to the story at all.
And this is all just driving them toward losing themselves in cyberspace, where finally... Okay, so I got my first clue when she turned out to be called Penny. This book is part of the series of books that started with Lost in Space.
Oh, Swiss Space Family Robinson.
I've read a few of them. Lost in Headspace was a real trip.
Oh, was that the mushroom one or the one with...
That was the mushroom one.
Right,
the mushroom one. Yeah. Lost in Aerospace was way too much jargon for me. Lost in Workspace as well. And of course, Lost in Backspace was tragically deleted. Okay, so that was that bit. So now we've had that bit.
And there was Lost in Office Space, I assume. So yes, the whole digitization thing goes a bit on. I mean, that's the one thing that the book kind of doesn't address at all.
How she's given
and
form?
How she is and how they are getting like sucked into the whole cyberspace quilt thing. It's like it seems.
Oh,
to
that's right.
Yeah,
they get sucked into the Cyber-Quilt.
They suddenly find themselves in like digital.
Those aren't words I ever thought I'd
digital
say.
Pennsylvania, trying to make their way around. Well, actually, I guess it's more in the Alps rather than Pennsylvania. But
well, it was pretty clear to me that they were sucked into GeoCities, which literally, if you remember, it had neighborhoods, it had boroughs.
It did,
It was this wild idea that people would be better able to relate to the internet if it was given geography.
Yeah. And then, of course, they can't get out because the Amish don't acknowledge technology. So they're stuck here, and they're just like, but how do we get out? Get out of where? Out of cyberspace. What are you talking about? This is where we live.
Riding their 2-bit buggies. No, just 1-bit buggy. Oh, there's a joke there somewhere about bits.
Oh.
No, I'll probably get there one of these days.
Maybe a horse took a bite out of it.
Maybe just a nibble.
Good one.
Yes! Thank you! Thank you! One very small but hard-earned point for Khaki, I think.
Oh.
But she needs her two companions to help her fulfill her quest. Like, there's a reason that she came to them, or there's a reason that she summoned them, because of the prophecy of the oncoming apocalypse. Because what would a religious offshoot be without its own eschatological writings?
Absolutely.
Like, the end times are fast approaching.
The quilt is meant to guard against that prophecy. It's their ultimate failsafe, which they built in case technology was going to get so dangerous that it was going to destabilize society and cause massive outages, like nuclear stations going haywire.
Yeah, all the fabrics of society that they've woven around themselves.
Absolutely.
The physical quilt of the world started to unravel because of its own complexity and lack of foresight.
Jacob.
Oh, yes, Jacob. I should call him John. John, of course, one of the boys.
Yeah, Jacob, who was had the foresight to like have this failsafe embroidered, or no, that's not embroidery. It's whatchamacallit.
Well, it's quilting, isn't it?
You got knitting, and then you got the other one. Crochet. No,
that's not right. You don't crochet a quilt, do you?
Well, I think you can.
I mean, you're allowed to.
You
nobody's going to stop you.
I mean, quilting seems to be... I never really understood the whole... how quilting seems to be this thing. It's just like sewing squares of cloth together, but I never really understood how that is like so hard and time labor intensive. I mean, if you craft to crochet it, then I can see that it's a tremendous amount of work.
It's as labor intensive as you want to make it. It's like painting an icon. Like, it's just a little square. They're all the same size. How can it be difficult?
This icon we paint blue.
Yes. Now, credit where it's due. That is our countryman Herman Finkers.
Yes.
From Almelo, which is kind of our Pennsylvania when you think about it.
I mean, I'm from that part of the country. Not Almelo, but a little bit further south.
What do you call the area around it?
Twente.
Twente, and then you're the Pennsylvania Dutch. Well, I guess. There's a gag there somewhere.
I'm sure there is, but
we're not finding it. Do we have our version of the Amish?
don't think so. I mean, but I don't think there's any technology deniers anywhere, and there's the electromagnetic wave loonies, of course, trying to get away from all the transmission masts.
Oh, yes, with their special helmets that they insist are not tinfoil hats, but they're totally...
Anyway, back to Lost in Cyberspace.
Lost in Cyberspace, where they don't deal with made up, perhaps even psychosomatic problems, but they deal with the very real problem of, well, this apocalyptic prophecy, the decline of civilization from its own great height. As you mentioned, the threat of crucial systems like air traffic control, like nuclear power stations,
hospitals, everything breaking down, and
the Y2K apocalypse.
Just because 2 extra bytes for the full year was too expensive. And I think it's quite amusing how Mr. Peck manages to put all that back to the origin of the Amish, how they had the foresight of this kind of technological disaster happening at some point, which is insane, of course, because like there weren't anything even remotely resembling a computer back then. Even the Babbage engine had not even been designed yet.
Oh, so we're going to get some tweets if we get this wrong.
Oh, yes.
I thought that the argument was very well made that the Amish turned away from technology in response to this prophetic vision that Jacob Ammon had received about a future enamored of technology, lacking the foresight to protect itself from its own dependence on a resource that it was unable to maintain. I mean, this was a fantastic literary criticism of the emergence of the Y2K bug, and that it's only so disastrous because we're so dependent on these technologies that we built with so little foresight that the Y2K bug could happen. This cyclical, like Ouroboros of hubris more than destiny is then saved by a prophet from many centuries ago.
1800s, yes.
Who
managed to get somehow technology virus quilted into a blanket.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably part of his prophetic vision, was if it was so complete that he understood this problem, then he must have received
some sort of divine knowledge, yes. I mean, it beats Adam Smith with his golden tablets in the hat or something.
Yeah.
I like this a lot better,
I like this one a lot better too, yeah. Certainly because it has more of an exciting cyberspace plot. So our heroes then have to go on an adventure to try and stop the Y2K bug, which is represented as literal bugs that they have to squash.
Well, yes, it's the whole cyberspace thing. Everything has a very literal visual representation of it. And of course, there's like the villain. Well, the villain of the story is actually the Y2K bug. Who has to be like eradicated from the corners of the
a cruel
information superhighway.
Yes, eradicated from all of its corners.
I think how many millions of hours do you think it actually took the actual the people who worked on the Y2K? It was a tremendous.
It was a tremendous amount of effort. Yes, of course. But in the world of Lost in Cyberspace, the real world was sort of helpless in the face of this overwhelming force of chaos, and it was up to these
plucky
teens. Yeah. 2 boys under the leadership of an Amish girl who sewed and crocheted and quilted new weapons for them to use.
Having to work their way through the Pennsylvania countryside, squashing the bugs hiding in the grain silos and the tractors and the other.
And the nuclear power stations that they encountered, because the systems that they have to cleanse of this corruption. Ooh, God, I started to sound like Jacob Ammon myself.
Yes.
Give me something to thump. I'm feeling very thumpy at the moment. So they realize that they're fighting the symptoms, that they're destroying all of these bugs, these creepy gremlin-like monsters that are really quite cute, and you also don't feel terrible about them.
I love the scene in the cannery where they're basically munching their way through all the tomatoes, because that's actually one of the first instances where the Y2K bug started showing up.
What?
It was in a warehouse. From one day to the next, they suddenly noticed that the tomato puree started going very fast. And what was happening is like they had an automated warehouse system which had the expiration date of all the products. So and tomato puree has a fantastically long shelf life. It had I think it had like a 12 or 13 years long best before date. What happened is like the system booked in like a few pallets full of tomato puree with an expiration date of 01. So at night the automatic batch process was running like, oh, this one's expired by 87 years, and it like immediately started moving those pallets back out again for destruction. And this was one of the first occurrences of the Y2K bug where people started actively noticing.
I didn't know
that. I thought that was a fun thing to include in the book.
It was a great scene where Penny was berating them for their food wastage, but I had no idea that was the actual source. Every time we record something, I learn something new. Thank you, Kay.
Well, it's my pleasure.
But so with this realization, what they need is an end run. What they need is to solve the core problem. And it's Penny who provides the solution in the way that only an Amish could. As much as Jacob Ammon realized that this apocalyptic future was happening, and he had hoped, of course, that Amish civilization would become an example.
Yes, assuming technology would like prevent the whole problem from occurring in the first place.
Exactly. Then we could make it past the year 2000 without having to worry about dependency on computer systems that were then subject to this bug. I mean, modern Amish are about a return to the past, whereas the original Amish were about preserving life as they had it then. Now it's very much a return to the past. So this theme of choosing the past is kind of a simplified way of putting it, but it sort of works in this case. Penny leads them to the master clock, the internet essentially, which they reset to, well, I think the date is like 1981, like just far enough that, well, we'll give ourselves another 20 years and then we'll figure it out from there.
It shows that a certain fundamental lacking of knowledge about computers by the author, which I always find very amusing when it comes to cyberspace authors. Of course,
and a bit of a lack of foresight on the part of Penny and the cyber saving.
You can't blame Penny. You can't blame Penny in this regard, but it's like
this is the best you can. But like they're still just kicking the can down the road, and they're no better off than they were before. Just resetting internet time by 19 years and just flipping it back to 1981. Which
suddenly we have like another 19 years to solve this problem.
Yeah, and in the meantime, it would kind of explain the 1980s and 90s toxic nostalgia that we've found ourselves in since the year 2000 came along.
I suppose,
a series of remakes, so maybe we are living in this world. Maybe
that's the cause.
Maybe the soul of our world did get reset in 1981.
And now we're just like rehashing it all again.
Reliving it until we finally do hit.
You know what they say, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And those who do learn from history are doomed to watch those who didn't learn from history repeat it.
That's a bit of a somber note to end this wonderful book on. So all in all, I thought it was a very good young adult adventure.
Yes.
I liked
even though it's way post the time where young adult fiction was like actually grown into the genre it is today.
I'd say like before the Harry Potter era.
Before Harry Potter, before
Twilight, Robin Hood.
No, the
Tinkerbell.
Hunger Games. Thank you.
Because
she was an archer.
Okay, so fine. So you make the gesture of pulling a bow, and then you did fairy wings.
No, the bird, little birdie, like the jaybird.
Oh, the mockingjay.
Mockingjay, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. With those same clues, with the bow and arrow, and with the little
Cupid,
fairy wings.
Yeah.
Cupid. That was where I was going to go.
That thing.
So how are we going to rate this book?
Out
of what's a good cyber?
8.
I was going to say 2,000. How many bits out of 1 byte?
So I'm going to give it 01101.
You're going to make me. Is that counting from the left or the right?
Yes, it is.
Oh no! I could have done it too. Yeah, you didn't even finish the that was a baker's nibble.
Yeah, well, whatever. It was an entertaining book.
Sorry, I'm still trying to do the math because I think you said 7. Did you say 7?
I said 0, so the first digit makes no sense whatsoever.
That's a bit. Well, no, a byte can be up to 256.
Yeah, that's right. But like we were going.
So let's do this from the. No, our readers probably want to really hear this. 01101.
So the most significant one is 0. It's like 1101. So that's 1 plus 4 plus 8. So that's 13.
That'll do. 13 out of 256. Okay, so you're not super into.
No, I was trying to grade it out of 8. Remember, I gave it accidentally gave it a 13 out of 8.
You're like we rate dogs.
Well, they're good bytes.
They're good bytes, Brent.
Yes.
And to the readers at home, we'd love to hear what you thought about this book, whether you listened to it or not. So drop us a line sometime. We're Cover My Ass Cast on Twitter and Facebook, if that's your thing, or even better, leave a nice review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, because we sure do appreciate your help. Now, Kay, what do you have in store for our dear readers at home next week?
Right. We have a travelogue by our countryman, J. Maarten Troost.
Ooh.
It was a Dutch-American author who wrote a very interesting book called The Sex Lives of Cannibals, Adrift in the Equatorial Pacific.
I can't wait, and that about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Come In My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
Like to pay, comes soon enough.